I feel like if any of our students watch this, they're gonna hear me say this and roll their eyes at me, but it's fine. Go to class.
Go to
Go
class.
to class, take notes in whatever way you want, whatever way it's gonna make you remember, but take good notes. Ask questions. I I know that some people get embarrassed when they don't know things. I
Mhm.
don't know a lot of things, but I don't get embarrassed to ask because if somebody has enough time to judge me for not knowing something, they need more homework, they need to have some other type of hobby because they just obviously don't have enough time or
Yeah.
don't have enough things to do that they have the time to judge me. But
Oh no.
Yup.
They don't get it. It's okay. We get it.
I was like, yes, Lord, come on with the cancellations.
Whew, we going in it. Now just kidding.
You know, I don't know if you know this, but I'm black. Am I? You know,
He's with the best of them, and he's one of my favorite men to cut the emphasize.
that entrance sounds like much more than who I actually am.
All right, so my guest of honor is an enchanting Southern belle that exudes style and grace. She's the queen of organization, coordination, and leadership. She always leads with love and integrity and has a heart for empowering others. She formerly served as an assistant learning specialist for student athletes, but now she wears many hats and serves in a major way in her family-owned business. She's an amazing woman with an amazing future. Today, my guest of honor is Winter Aguilar-Frost.
that
Are
was
you-
such a great introduction. That made me feel like 10 times better about myself. Thank you.
Well, I really do feel that way though, especially when I saw the word enchanting. I was like, oh, we putting that in there. We got to put that in
Yes.
there because that's you. I always think of like Winter
Like
Wonderland.
it.
Yes, Disney, Winter Wonderlands, all of that.
Yeah. I need you to introduce me everywhere else I go with that.
Call me up. I will come. Be like, hey, I'm the MC tonight. Let me go ahead and introduce
Yes.
Winter.
Yes.
How's everything going?
Good. Long
Good.
day, but ready to have a great conversation.
Well, so let's just start at the beginning. Tell the people
Okay.
you where you went to school, like where you're from, all that good stuff.
All right. I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas. So I grew up there and went to school there. I also got my undergraduate degree at the University of Texas at El Paso. Go Miners! Uh, for a while, we were the only ones that had an NCAA men's basketball national championship, but obviously Baylor. Congratulations to Baylor, but I was a little salty about it. I graduated college in 2015 and then moved to Fort Worth because my older sister, who's only a year and a week older than I am. We've always kind of done everything together. She had moved here. One of my best friends from college was going to law school here. And so I was like, why the heck not? Let's just go try things in a new city. Um, I got my master's degree through Angelo State University. I did do it online though, so I was living in Fort Worth while completing my master's degree, but my undergraduate degree is in organizational and corporate communications, and my master's degree is in student development and leadership in higher education. And I've been living in Fort Worth since 2015. I just got married in 2020 before the pandemic happened.
Right before.
Uh, yes, right before. We were on our honeymoon when it was declared a pandemic in the US. So that's my backstory. Oh, since I mentioned my sister, I also have a younger brother. He's really
So you gotta mention you
cool.
have to mention the brother if you mention her.
Yeah, if I already mentioned my sister, yeah, I definitely have to mention my brother.
Well, I'm glad your sister moved to Fort Worth so you could come over here so we can meet you.
Yes, I agree. I have enjoyed, obviously, you'll always like love your hometown because it kind of makes you who you are even when you go somewhere else.
Hmm.
But I'm really enjoying living somewhere else. I love El Paso. Don't know that I would ever move back there, but I still love going there. I was just there this past weekend for a college friend's wedding, and time stands still in that place. It didn't really, even though it's growing, it didn't really feel that different.
I think a lot of people say that, like when it comes to moving away from home, it's like you're either on one end of the spectrum or the other. I'm afraid to move and I just don't want to lose everything, or I'm ready to go and I think I'm gonna love it
Yeah,
the other place. Like there's
yeah,
never a middle person, I feel like. So um
absolutely.
But yeah, tell me a little bit about your love for helping other people and why you decided to go into leadership with your degrees.
I think it really stems from one of the biggest influences in my life is my grandfather. He was the ultimate helper. He would give the shirt off his back. I know how cliche, right? Everybody says that. But he really would give the shirt off of his back for people. He was always looking to help others, whether it just be through being somebody that they could talk to or helping them in other ways. So I think being raised by him and obviously my mother, he kind of instilled that in us early on. So
Mm-hmm.
it was really easy to do things to serve others throughout my like growing up in college, post graduate degree. It really started young with him, and it was kind of like you can't really understand somebody just by looking at them. So if someone needs help, why wouldn't you help them? If you're in a position to help someone, why wouldn't you? And so I think a lot of who I am and what I ended up doing kind of stemmed from him.
Yeah. What other core values would you say that your family kind of instilled in you?
Definitely empathy is the first one for sure. Like I said, it's better to just see somebody for who they are instead of trying to assume that you know them based on numerous characteristics. I feel like today and age it's so easy to assume what you think somebody is based on negative stereotypes that have been created by society, and that's one thing I just can't get on board with. I've seen how people have suffered from that. I too have suffered from negative stereotypes, and I'm not going to do it because I remember how that felt.
Mm-hmm.
But besides empathy, definitely equity. I'm not a very black and white thinker. I like to see the world in all of its various colors.
Mm-hmm.
But I do struggle when I see something that doesn't seem like if something happens for one person but doesn't happen for the other person and it's the same exact situation, I struggle. I'm
Yeah.
like, the rules for some things need to be applied equally. And there's a lot of, I mean, you and I have talked about this a lot, but there's a lot of things that I believe in that stem from that altogether. I believe in equity, I believe in justice. And I was taught from an early age that I needed to say something regardless of what it was, even if somebody didn't think the same way I did. It was better to say something than sit back and do nothing. And so I've never had a problem saying anything in a nice way, definitely, or in an appropriate way if the situation isn't very nice. But I think my family really taught me from a young age not to just sit back and let things happen, especially if it's something that doesn't sit right with you, or if somebody is being treated unfairly, you have to get up and say something. So, kind of learned that pretty early on. I credit my grandmother for that. She was very outspoken always, and she told me not to be ashamed of that, and I'm definitely not.
Your grandmother is awesome.
Yes, she is. She's
She
so
really
funny.
she's very funny, and I can definitely see all of those things in you, especially with us working together, as working with our student athletes and seeing like everything that they had to deal with. I could always count on you to be like an advocate. Like we always said that you were somebody we knew who would stand up for the kids. So I'm grateful that they had you in that time because they needed it. Um, Now Winter and I met working together, working with our student athletes, and I wanted to ask you, like, what drew you to that position? Like, what caused you to want to be in that realm of work?
Well, it's really interesting because before that, I was working at another university in Fort Worth, and that particular university had decided after 75 years of not having a football team, it's a really interesting story. Their entire football team was enlisted for the draft, and so the football team never really recovered after that. So
Wow.
the university itself went without a football program for 75 years. And I was working there as the campus visit coordinator for incoming students that were looking to attend the university, come and visit and get a feel for it. And then within a span of like a month, it's just like a whirlwind of we're reinstating the program. We already picked a head coach. And so now we're fielding in all these calls in the admission office. And so I kind of compiled everything together, got it organized. The head coach started, and I was like, hey, here's all the people that have been calling. And he's like, oh, wait, can you keep doing this? So my role kind of progressed. I was still the official campus visit coordinator, but I helped extensively with football recruiting because it was such a new program. So we were setting up visits similar to how we would do campus visits, specifically for prospective student athletes for the football team. And I really enjoyed getting to know them. I was there when the inaugural first team started,
Mm.
and they were just like deer in headlights when college started.
Yeah.
And so, since I was helping the football program, a lot of them saw me as somebody that they can go to. And I started to realize that there was a really big gap for them as students. Sure, they're athletes and they have this God given ability to do what they do, but it was the gap between them coming from high school or transferring from a junior college or a community college into a 4-year university. And I really didn't like that they were so lost.
Yeah.
It was kind of hard for me to understand because I didn't experience that when I went into college. I took dual credit classes in high school.
Hmm.
It was never a question about, oh, do you think you're going to go to college? It was like, no, where are you applying to colleges? My family was emphasized higher education a lot. So I was prepared, and I had a mom who truly understood the college process. I think mostly in part because my sister went to college a year before I did, but my
Hmm.
mom was very knowledgeable. So I didn't really have that lack of understanding when I went to the university level. On top of that, I credit my public education from El Paso. We actually had my junior year, half of our semester was SAT prep, and the other half of the semester was college prep, where we got to write essays, fill out applications. And I did not realize that. I thought that was a state mandated thing that everybody did. I did not realize that that wasn't in a program that was state mandated, because
Hmm.
over here you have to pay to have SAT prep
Yes, you
or
do.
someone to help you. Well, now we have like what, I forget what it's called in the high school, where there'll be college students that come help
Well,
students fill out
like the
um,
Go Center, and you have the
Go
Go
Center.
Center.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, the Go Centers. So they
Hmm.
had that, but I actually had curriculum to follow, and I didn't have to go during a certain period. It was actually on my schedule. We had to go to that
Wow.
class.
That's amazing.
So seeing how students were like, how do I check my email? Or even when students were coming in to try and start applying for the university, they had no real idea what to do. They were just kind of like, oh, I'm here. And so when I decided to pursue my master's degree, I did want to take a step back. I was very fortunate enough not to have to work full time
Hmm.
while I was pursuing my master's degree. So I was looking for something that was part time. And I found the position where we met at another university in Fort Worth, working with student athletes in the athletic academic services office. And so I kind of just, from my passion from learning with those first student athletes, it seemed like a pretty easy transition. It's something I wanted to go to, but it's really
Hmm.
funny because my mentor at TCU, she's like, I'll never forget your interview because I asked you like what you want to do after you get your degree. And because I was already working in some capacity in football operations at my former institution, I told her, I think I want to go back into football operations. And she's
Hmm.
like, you sure? She's like, really? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay. And she's like, in my head, I thought, I'm going to ask her again at the end of the semester, see what she says. And she's like, I didn't even have to ask. You came and you're like, I think I want to stay in athletic academics. And she's like, I could tell right away that you had a passion for something that was maybe more or better fitted for academics than football operations. But
Hmm.
that's how we ended up meeting. And
Hmm.
that's what kind of drew me to that position, was really being able to not just help student athletes, but teach them to help themselves, because eventually we're not going to be there. They're going to
Hmm.
graduate, they're going to move on. And I want them to be as prepared for the real world as possible.
Yep.
So I knew if I could get my feet on the ground and in there with them, I could potentially help them with that, because my ultimate idea of their success is being able to be out in the real world and functioning and know what to do.
Yeah. I will say this. You definitely did that. Your patience, I feel like you understood your mission, you understood the assignment, and you had patience enough to carry it through. And I think that that was refreshing for our student athletes because they're not used to that. They're used to them like practice, class, eat, go, 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 go. And so whenever they
Yeah.
would interact with you, it's kind of like, or with us, you make them slow down, you know, enough to smell the roses and be like,
Yeah.
no, you need to get it together because you're gonna be somebody daddy or somebody else.
Exactly.
So I think that it's interesting how you got into the field because it was kind of like thrown, like you were thrown into it and didn't even know that that was gonna be
Yeah.
it.
Exactly. Yeah. But I was very fortunate. It was something that I enjoyed doing very much.
Yeah, the best part about it, I feel like, are the relationships. You
Yes.
actually got to be a part of their lives, and I didn't realize that we were gonna be that hands on. Like I really did not
Yes.
expect that at all. Um, what is something that surprised you about working in this realm?
There's a lot of things that surprised me. Like I guess in all fairness, it was surprising how uncool I actually realized I was because these new kids come in and I'm just like, I'm not cool in any sense of the word.
I'm
So
not cool.
that was very surprising and very humbling.
Oh my gosh.
But a lot of my students really appreciated that I didn't try to be cool.
Yep.
So I guess it worked for me. What
Yeah.
I was really surprised with was again how unprepared some of them were. And
Yeah.
it speaks to a lot of different things. I don't think it's fair to point fingers, but it shows that there's a lack across the board in a lot of different places. I feel, and we talked about this at work. A lot of us talked about this. A lot of it does stem from the education system,
Hmm.
and it's hard because I went to public school all my life. Granted, it was in a different city, and I thought I had a really good public education, and I still attest to that. I definitely think I did. And
Yeah.
then I meet people who went through probably the same curriculum that I did, maybe a little more developed because there's obviously an age gap between us and the student athletes.
Hmm.
And I was like, wait, I learned this in middle school or high school. Why didn't you learn it? But there's a lot of things embedded into the education system that might not be favorable to certain students. And that could be based on socioeconomic factors. It could be based on um, learning differences, but we don't encapsulate all that. And then we kind of just pass people along. It doesn't even
Yep.
necessarily have to do with the fact that they're student athletes. I know that's a stigma that student athletes just get passed along because of their talent. But I also think that it has to do with the fact that sometimes people don't know how to help a student, not
That's true.
because they lack the experience, but because maybe the education system doesn't focus on these certain aspects. And so by the time someone realizes this student needs help, it might be a little too late without intensive support.
Yeah.
So seeing that gap, I was really taken aback because I felt like since I too went through the public education system, I thought people would be similar, and I was a student athlete in high school. All of my friends were student athletes. They were football players, basketball players, baseball player. I was a cheerleader, and it didn't seem like a lot of my friends, while they struggled with certain things, like don't give me a math problem unless you're going to give me a calculator and maybe like a tutor, then I can probably do it. But
Yeah.
it didn't seem like we struggled that much. We were all very competitive with our grades. Somebody was like, "What's your rank? What's your rank?" So to see that difference, I was a little taken aback. I was a little confused. I didn't realize that there would be that big of a gap.
Yeah, atmosphere definitely plays a role in all of that because I
Yes,
mean, you only know what's available to you if you know it's available to you. Or
exactly.
some resources are just not there. And a lot of
Exactly.
times people do just push those kids through, regardless of you being an athlete, normal students too. Like, you know, they kind of
Exactly.
like looked over or they feel like they don't want to put in the effort. I'm here for a check type of thing.
Yeah,
Um, and so the education system really suffers. Like the kids suffer because of the system and the people that push.
exactly.
Yeah,
And some teachers sometimes barely make enough to survive. And so
yeah,
a lot of good teachers are leaving the profession because they can't afford to live on that. And these are the people that are teaching our youth. I had a really great public education instructor, some that are still influential today. I can remember their names. I can remember what they taught me. I can remember how they made me feel
Yeah.
about learning, and to see that there's really good teachers out there that can no longer afford to live because of how little they get paid. It's like, if we want our students to be taught and taught well, people should be making more to do that, because I hate the mentality that someone says like teachers are babysitters. No, they're not.
No.
No, I'm not your kid's mother. I'm
Nope.
not going to act like their mother. And some people also don't have the support at home, and it's not for a lack of support, but I again was very privileged that I had family members who had already graduated college. So they were able to help me through educational issues that I had or troubles. Some people, their parents work full time,
Mhm.
so they don't have that support at home. It's not because the parents don't want to support them, it's because they physically can't, because they need to work to make sure that they're providing for their family.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily experience that. I had parents that worked full time, grandparents that worked full time, but they were always there to help me if I had a homework question or to make sure that I was doing my homework. So I had a lot of supervision, and I understand that I was really lucky for that, and not a lot of people get that opportunity.
Yeah. But the beautiful thing is you've taken all of those things that you've learned and you're putting it out there for other people and you're helping other people along your way, like trying to
Yes.
get to your next level as well. And I think that more people should really evaluate what they learned and see how they can use it to service the world, because that's really the cycle. Like, that's
Yes,
really how
exactly.
I feel it's supposed to go, but it's just me.
I agree. I agree.
Just me. So with that being said, what are three things you feel like students should focus on, like in order to prepare for the next level? Student athletes are just regular students.
So like the collegiate level,
Yeah, collegiate
like if
level.
they're going to college,
Yeah, if they're going to college,
I
like
have
what are three things they should focus on?
I have notes because I wanted to make sure that I like brainstorm, because I feel like sometimes I have so much to say and then I forget things.
I understand
Um,
that.
the first thing that any student should focus on is learning. Do not let anybody get in the way of your learning experience and what you learn. So really, I feel like if any of our students watch this, they're going to hear me say this and roll their eyes at me, but it's fine. Go to class.
Go to
Go
class.
to class, take notes in whatever way you want, whatever way it's going to make you remember, but take good notes. Ask questions. I I know that some people get embarrassed when they don't know things. I
Hmm.
don't know a lot of things, but I don't get embarrassed to ask, because if somebody has enough time to judge me for not knowing something, they need more homework, they need to have some other type of hobby, because they just obviously don't have enough time
Yeah,
or don't have enough things to do that they have the time to judge me. But so many people are afraid of looking a certain way to other people that they won't stop and ask the questions for better clarity and understanding. And I felt like part of what we did created that safe space for our student athletes to ask those questions. It was you We didn't see you as dumb because you didn't know something. There's a lot of
right.
things I didn't know,
Yeah,
and I was completely comfortable enough with myself to ask those questions. So ask the questions so you can have a true understanding of what things are, because so many things are intertwined with each other, especially across multiple like educational um I guess you could say like majors and stuff. There's so many cross disciplinary things that you
yeah.
can learn something from one class and it's going to be applicable in another class. So just ask the questions, study. Nobody likes studying. I don't like studying, but I'm going to do it because I know that I need to.
Now I'm
I
spending my
can't
money.
exactly. I'm not I wish I could be one of those people that had like the photographic memory, because then I could just recall it.
Hmm.
That's not me. So I need to study and really just focus on understanding. That's the best thing you can do. Even if it's something you're not interested in, you can still understand it and not be interested.
Hmm.
Second thing, second thing for sure, especially in college, this is the time to do it. Get out of your comfort zone. Meet people that don't look like you, don't think like you.
Hmm.
You'll be surprised at how much you learn from other people. even if it doesn't change your personal perspective on things or your personal ideologies,
Mhm.
it really teaches us to be more empathetic and respect the differences in other people.
Yeah.
And I met a lot of different people in college. Again, I grew up in El Paso, so it was a predominantly Hispanic city. And so going to college where there's sports, there's people that look different from other places. There was a lot of international students. So getting to know all of those people opened up my eyes past the small world that I knew, because we all
Mhm.
have different walks of life. So it's really important to learn from other people. And probably the last thing is get involved.
Mhm.
I was really involved in college. I was in a sorority. I was in a couple of other organizations, and you just make really good connections, people that you never thought you would meet. And those connections come in handy later.
They do.
So you want to make as many connections as you can, because it opens up a lot of other doors. So those would be my three things for students to focus on when they're going to college.
And those are all great things because they force you to look at yourself. I think,
Yes,
like meeting people, I would always say that I discovered my superpower when I started, meeting other people from different cultures and like
yeah,
just absorbing the culture. I was able to recognize that these are my issues, that's their issues, and we can still coexist. And
exactly.
I discovered that I discovered my superpower at that point, and that's just me being myself. Like,
Yeah,
be myself, be yourself,
exactly.
because they need to know that all of us aren't the same, and they need to know that it's okay. So who's going to teach them that
Exactly.
if they don't meet anybody? But
Mhm.
with that being said, I want to ask you, what are your five non-negotiables when it comes to like friendships and relationships and connections? Because when you're dealing with people, you got to have some standards and some boundaries.
Yes. Number 1, and I feel like anybody that really knows me will probably know the answer to this, is authenticity.
Yeah.
You have to be 100% yourself. Again, 100% real, as some cool kids would say. Maybe they don't say that anymore. I'm sure they say something different, but I'm a couple years behind them. But I've always valued authenticity in myself, so I value it in other people. I don't really try and change myself for other people. And I think that staying true to yourself, staying true to your morals, your principles, you attract people based on that. So trying to be someone else, you might attract people that you don't want to be friends with.
Mhm.
So authenticity is definitely number 1. Loyalty and respect are tied for number 2.
Yeah.
I think that those things are really important, and loyalty can look different. It doesn't mean like if I call you right this second, you have to drop everything and come see me. But no, it's as you get older, you realize loyalty is those people that you can not talk to them for months, and then you talk and it's like you never skipped a beat, and they will be there for you in the trying times, but also respecting the fact that people have lives. I don't
Mhm.
I don't expect somebody to drop everything for me unless maybe like my house is on fire and I need a ride.
Like, come
Maybe
get me.
then maybe then come and get me, but not like drop everything because I don't know, because I want to hang out.
Yeah.
I understand that we're all adults now. And of course respect kind of goes with empathy. I have so many friends and family members and my spouse, obviously. We have so many different opinions.
Mhm.
And I think it's okay to be that way and to have that mutual respect that, hey, you don't think like I do. I don't think like you do. But I respect you enough to know that I'm not going to like completely outcast you because you don't believe like the same way I do. I think that's a lot of respect, respecting again people's time
Mhm.
and their lives and what they've got going on. Um, Empathy again, reoccurring theme. But empathy is definitely a non-negotiable. I don't know that I can really tolerate someone who can't be empathetic, because again, that's assuming I know everything about a situation or a person when I don't really know them at all.
Yeah.
And kindness. Some people might be surprised by that because I'm very firm in a lot of my approaches, but definitely being kind to others, because obviously with everything going on in the world right now, pick a subject, pick a topic, pick a day, and it seems like we lack kindness. So kindness is also something that's really important. I struggle with someone who just is mean because they're mean.
Mm-hmm.
I understand being firm and standing up for yourself. I don't mind that at all. But if you're being mean just because you can, we're probably not going to be friends for a very long time.
Mm-mm.
So those are my non-negotiables.
Yeah. You're firm, but it's rooted in love, though, because it seems
Yes,
like you're like that because, like you said, reoccurring thing, empathy. You're
yeah,
either fighting for yourself or fighting for somebody else. So it's understood when it's like somebody who's real can understand what you're doing.
exactly.
Other people, some people won't.
Yeah,
They just won't get it.
yes.
Um, but yeah, I wanted to ask, what does representation mean to you? Like, what does it mean to pour into the next generation?
Oh, I was hoping that we would talk about that because that's something that's really important, mostly because as everybody in every generation before your own generation says, the youth is the future,
They are.
regardless of what future that is. And everybody says it, but it's because it's true.
Hmm.
So these people are going to be our future politicians, people who are representing me
Hmm.
eventually, right? Because they can be politicians or they'll grow up to be just productive citizens in the society, whether it be through their job, whether they're just active in their local communities.
Hmm.
So it's very important to foster that and mentor that to help them really just be authentically themselves. I think can see sometimes people like to manipulate others, right? So we see the youth as our future in various aspects. I don't
Hmm.
want to manipulate that to cater to what I want, but I want them to just be 100% authentically themselves, because then they're going to go out in the community and not only benefit the community from that, but mentor other people to do that exact same thing.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to invest in them. And a lot of people see the youth as dangerous. And I think because regardless of the youth, when you're 100% authentically yourself, you're dangerous to everybody
Hmm.
because you no longer serve anybody other than what you stand for.
Yep.
And so some people see youth as dangerous. Sometimes they see them as stupid and not worth investing in. And while I believe that we probably shouldn't eat Tide Pods again, um, I think that the youth has a lot to offer.
A
And
lot.
maybe more than I hope that the youth has more to offer than I do. I want the youth to be better than me
They need
because
to
that's
be.
what's going to change. Again, all the cliches, but that's what's going to change the world.
Yeah. We need them to be, well, for lack of a better word, I need them to be rebels because honestly,
Yeah,
status quo is not always the thing. Like
exactly.
sometimes somebody had to shake some things up before to get us where we are now.
I
So
agree.
I always kind of teach my students, whoever works with me knows that I'm gonna be like, be you and make sure
Exactly.
you stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself and understand that
Mhm.
this is just a foundation. This is not
Yeah,
like end all be all. So you need to gather all your resources here and take them and go do what you do
exactly.
outside of these walls.
Yeah,
Um,
use the system. Use
yeah.
the system back. And if you really look at it, it's historic.
Hmm.
A lot of social movements were led in masses by the youth. I think that's why the civil rights movement is one of my favorite things to cover in history. It's
Yeah.
one of my favorite eras. And I know that's hard to say because it's like, oh, it's my favorite era, even though there was such atrocities happening. But it was because we saw the power of the youth and certain groups saying, no, not
Yeah.
anymore. It's not
Yeah.
going to happen this way. I actually had family members that participated in the walkouts in California, the Chicano movement
Yeah.
walkouts. And
Yeah.
I'm like so thankful that, and it growing up around people who were not afraid to say anything, who were not afraid to participate in things like that, even if it went against the grain, even if it caused them more trouble.
Yeah.
if nobody would have done that, I probably wouldn't have been able to go to college. I probably wouldn't have been able to marry my husband.
We probably wouldn't know
I
each other.
Yeah, we wouldn't know each other. I
Yep.
wouldn't be able to have a credit card in my name. So because of those people pushing back, and again, primarily youth, it really shook things up for the better. So why stop now? There's
Yeah.
so many things that can be better, and hopefully they do become better because the youth is really active right now too. It
Yeah.
was a very big blessing to work with so many student athletes and hear their perspectives, things I didn't experience growing up or understand, and seeing how passionate they are about it.
Yeah.
I think
It's
I think we're
beautiful.
good to go. Yeah.
It's beautiful, and I will say this: the kids think that they learn so much from us, and
Mhm.
I always tell the kids, "Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey." Because what you don't know is my cycle is always there's always a group of students that comes into my life and like changes things and like
Yeah,
inspires me to do the next thing. And
exactly.
I don't know if they realize like how much of a role they play in our lives too. So
Yes.
to all the student athletes and all my other kids, they still my kids. Like I'm gonna know you forever.
Yes.
I think that they don't realize how powerful their voice is and their name is.
Yeah.
And it definitely impacts my life. I don't know about other people, but that's why I do it because it's just like fun to watch the transition and
I
see the
agree.
light bulb moments. Like that's the best part.
Exactly. Absolutely.
The
Helping
absolute
them find out who really not helping them find out, but just helping them help themselves figure out who they are. That's
yeah.
probably the ultimate reward for what we did.
Mhm.
I
It,
know you still do it. I don't get to work with students very often at
yeah.
all anymore, but it was just something that I treasure watching watching them graduate, but even then just watching them figure out who they are
Mhm.
and becoming more comfortable in that
Mhm.
was probably the best thing they could have given to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy kids.
Right?
But
Yes,
I will
absolutely.
I have to now. I have to ask you about the name, image, and likeness real quick because
Yes.
we were in the mix of all of that. So I
Yes,
want
we
to ask
were.
you how you feel about that new policy, and also, do you feel like there should have been more of a payout from the NCAA? Like, do you feel like it should have been the NIL and the payout, or do you think that the NIL is suitable enough?
I struggle. I still really struggle with it, and it's hard to give a true perspective because it's still so new, right? So
Yeah,
there's a lot of things rolling out with it, and there's going to be things that are tweaked.
yeah,
I appreciate the fact that now that some, and maybe this is controversial for some people that work in our profession, but I appreciate now that there's students who can capitalize on their likeness before they leave college
yeah,
because, as we know, not everybody makes it.
yeah,
And a lot of students see this as their way out. And that's something I also struggle with. I know that these students, like I said, have a God given ability, and watching them play is beautiful
yeah,
in whatever sport they play. But it's so hard for me to fully understand that this is what someone thinks is their only way out or
yeah.
their only way to provide for their family. And then they pour everything into that. And then someone tells them, like, oh, sorry, you're not good enough,
Yep.
try again next year. And some people try and never get that next opportunity to go to a professional level. So I appreciate that they can capitalize off of their likeness in college.
Yeah.
However, I struggle because, again, of equity. There's going to be people who don't get that opportunity regardless if they're a college athlete because, one, we have revenue sports, right? So
Yeah.
people are going to be drawn to the athletes in the revenue sports, and not only the athlete in the revenue sport, but the top athletes. So there
Mhm.
might even be some discrepancy between teammates on the same team. And because of equity, I struggle. We still see that at a professional level too.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you see reoccurring professional athletes on commercials, but you don't see, like, you'll see the quarterback or the running back or the wide receiver, but you won't see the lineman.
Yeah. They make it
It's
all happen.
hard. Exactly. It's hard. But the only thing at the professional level is that that lineman still gets paid.
Yeah.
And I struggle also, mostly because I hate the stigma of, well, student athletes get a free education, so that's like getting paid. And I'm
No.
like, I could not have been a student athlete and still had time to do what I wanted to do. I was fortunate enough that I could really focus on being in class and being present, making sure I got to eat at whatever time I found fit,
Yep.
getting to make new friends, join organizations, not wake up at 5, treatment or practice or something, go to class, go to class, go to class, try and get lunch in 10 minutes,
Yeah.
run to the academic center to come to a session or maybe 2 sessions, go to practice for 4 or 5 hours, and then come
Yeesh.
back to the academic center to do more tutoring. Regular students have that freedom. And I
Mm-hmm.
get that it is a privilege for some student athletes to have a full scholarship. That is a privilege, but it doesn't come free.
They work for it. Every
Exactly.
bit of that money. Every bit
And
of
so
it.
I really struggle with people saying, like, well, free education should be enough. And I'm like, but these kids don't even get to really have jobs. So as a
Mm-mm.
regular student could have a job and get some extra money, but these student athletes don't.
Yep.
And so
Against the
they're
rules.
they're limited in opportunities, even though they have an extraordinary opportunity to walk away from a university with either 1 or 2 degrees for free.
Yeah.
That is a really big opportunity, but again, it doesn't come free. So I still think there's a lot of pros and cons with the NIL, and I feel like as it develops, there's going to be even more controversy. Um, but that's why I don't really. It's hard to say. I don't really like it, but I don't really dislike it.
Yeah.
I think they rolled it out too quickly, so there's going to be a lot of things that it's like when you make a rule and then you're like, just kidding, changing the rule now. And then you're going to have people upset because you're like, no, wait, you're changing this to benefit you and not benefit me.
Exactly.
Even if that could be true, that could not be true. But there should have been a lot more development before it went out, because my fear is that with NIL, and hopefully it doesn't result in this, my fear is that with NIL, they'll start taking some of those guarantees, like a full scholarship,
Yep.
because of these endorsement deals. And it's a lot of responsibility to put on an 18-year-old
Yeah. Yeah.
to be like, here's your endorsement. We don't even offer like any type of financial courses in high school, but here you go. Here's all this money. Do with it what you will. And my fear is that it might impact a lot of the things that are already in place for student athletes when it comes to educational funding.
Yeah. I can see that. I can see how that could be a problem and like how they could possibly come about later on. But I feel like they definitely should have developed it a little bit more. I feel like they
Yeah,
rushed it because they were under the gun. You know, like
exactly.
they rushed it so they can like make people be quiet for a little bit,
Yeah,
but it's not solved at all. Like this is just
exactly.
the beginning of the beginning. So
Exactly. And we
um
see it happen time and time again with other like societal laws. It's
mhm,
like, here's something to just calm the storm,
yep.
but it's not really anything beneficial. So I hope that if it is developed more, that it does benefit the student athletes.
Mhm.
My fear is that it won't. And
Yeah.
hopefully by then there's somebody helping make those decisions that have true representation, that understand what it's really like to be a current student athlete, because there's a lot of things that have changed, and some people making those decisions haven't been a student athlete for a really long time, and there's so much more demand for student athletes today than there were a couple of decades ago.
Yeah. Just think about it. A lot of these kids are verified on social media. They have hundreds of thousands of followers already before they even get to college. Like they're already like low key celebrities. Um,
Exactly.
so I am happy that they're able to at least maximize off of their own
I
name because
agree.
it
I
is their
agree.
name and their
Uh-huh.
likeness. But on the flip side of it, it's I still have a fear of them not being able to handle their responsibilities fully and like balancing it all because I think that they can do it if their like mindset is on that. But if you're not about that life, you're gonna have a hard time like balancing
Exactly.
all these responsibilities because once they give you money, they expect results. Same way
Exactly.
when they give you a scholarship, they expect productivity. And once
Yep.
this drops, they start, you know, you're disposable, you know?
Exactly.
Um
You're replaceable.
Yeah. And I feel
And just like
like
endorsements, with
mhm,
endorsements, you're replaceable too. As soon as
mhm,
you step out of line, and it can be for anything. You mentioned social media. I think student athletes have to be a lot more responsible with their social media. I don't
mhm,
think it's a bad thing that you express yourself on social media. Nothing wrong with that. But always realize that an action can have a positive or negative reaction.
mhm.
And once you are being paid for something, such as name, image, and likeness, you're held to a higher standard. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of things that you think are fine that someone's not going to see as fine, and then all of a sudden, endorsement's gone.
Yep. That's why
So
you got to make sure you choosing that's what scares me too. A lot of them are going to be going after the carrot. They're not going to focus on, is this in alignment with who I am? Are these the things that I really represent? You're chasing
exactly,
money, and that scares me because I'm like, then you're going to be controlled another puppet again. You're already
exactly.
controlled as a student athlete. Let's be honest
Mhm.
about it.
Yeah,
But you have to choose things that are in alignment with your core values, not just things that have the price on it, because
agreed.
you will be in some situations.
I
So,
agree.
yeah, we'll see what happens. We shall find out.
I know.
Well, I got about 3 more questions for you.
Okay.
Okay, so tell me how you define happiness and success.
It's going to be an unconventional answer.
That's
Hopefully
what I
no
would
one
want.
was hopefully nobody's watching this to get inspiration for or the right answer spelled out for them. But I think happiness and success to me is being, again, repetitive, 100% authentically myself in
Mhm,
everything I do, regardless if it's my family, my profession, with friends. That's truly where I see success. Because
mhm,
when you become comfortable enough with yourself, it's almost like knowing your worth is
mhm.
all the success anybody can have, in my opinion. Nobody can put a value on me anymore because I don't allow them to.
Exactly.
Sure, I'd like to hear someone say, like, I hope my husband would say, "You're a good wife," because I think I'm a good wife. And obviously, he's a good husband, but I don't get my value solely from him.
Right.
It's really, I get my value from myself because I know myself and what I believe in and what I uphold. So when you get to a point where you're no longer controlled by external forces, to me, that's when I knew, regardless, I had reached success.
Yeah, I can agree with that because success is what you define it as. And
Exactly.
I think a lot of people feel like success is having a lot of money or the newest car or all these different things. But to me, having success is it has nothing to do with like physical things or
Yeah.
monetary things. It's all about peace and mindset for me. And
Yes.
number one, being authentically myself. I feel like that's the best way to be.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
so my next question is, how would you describe being free? Like, what does freedom mean to you?
Oh, I'm a broken record. Authenticity. I think that you can't really get away from that. And I know whoever watches this and says, wow, Winter said authentic a lot. I definitely did. But because it's the truth, I think being free is really about letting go of the external world around you and then putting a value on you based on your gender, your race, your socioeconomic status. All of those things are used to put us in boxes. And I think truly being authentic and free is removing yourself from that box. Sure, being a woman, being Hispanic is part of my identity,
Hmm.
but it's not my sole identity to the point where someone, because again, we get into those negative stereotypes. People are going to, certain stereotypes view Hispanics as one way. And they're obviously not, because they already put us in one category, and there's so many different categories of that anyway. So you
Yeah,
couldn't compare us. But being free is removing yourself from those societal expectations and just doing what you want to do and staying true to yourself instead of trying to conform to what other things or other people see as ideal.
yeah,
That's truly being free, because then again, nobody can control you except yourself.
yeah. and you won't put yourself in situations where you can be controlled. Um,
Exactly.
we all have things we have to like uphold, but um, ultimately, you can't. Nobody can take your power. You give it away,
Yes,
and
exactly.
our circumstances causes whatever it's going to cause, but you can control a certain amount of power.
Yeah.
So, and my last question is: if you knew then what you know now, would you change anything?
Mm. No, I wouldn't. And I think that's so easy to say that you wouldn't. There's definitely some situations I got into as a youth that I was like, girl, get it together.
Haven't we
But
all?
right? But I don't know that I would do it again because it made me who I was. I had to go through what I needed to go through to be who I am today. And that's something I value more than anything else. And there was a lot of hardship. I think everybody goes through a lot of hardship, and it's such a different hardship. What something that I went through that completely flipped my world upside down and tore me apart could be minuscule to some what somebody else went through, right? But we both had to go through those things to get to where we are now.
Hmm.
So I don't compare traumas, but that's where the empathy comes in. Somebody can go through something and I'm like, I never had to deal with that. There's fortune in that. But what also comes from those heartbreaking situations that you go through, or situations that you were put in that you didn't know what to do, or you felt out of control, those things taught you and helped you be cognizant of what to do in the future. So 10 out of 10 would not do it again. I think it all happened the way it was supposed to happen for me, and I couldn't be more thankful for that.
Yeah.
So I hope people really don't get caught up in looking back as like, I wish I would have known how things were going to be in the future so that I didn't do that. There's a lot of things that people think if I didn't do this, life would be so different now, but that's not definitive. Nothing's definitive
No.
in life. So instead of spending time thinking about, man, I wish I would have known that so that now today I could be a certain way or have done something different, you're going to get so consumed by thinking about changing your past that you forget to even live in the present, but also enjoy the future.
Yeah. I
So,
definitely
n-
agree.
no, and I hope that everybody else kind of gets away from that mentality.
Yeah. For real. I will say this, I'll end with this. Like, we're all going to experience failures. And I think
Yes,
for some reason, uh this generation of kids are just like adults too feel like failing is like the worst thing. And I feel like it's the best thing.
I
Um
agree.
because it's something that's going to build your character and it's going to show you if you need to work on yourself or if you're not ready for what you think you're ready for. Um
Exactly.
so I just hope that everybody will just take their L's and look at them as like ways to enhance themselves and ways to like reevaluate what you feel is valuable.
Exactly. Yeah,
Um,
failing definitely teaches you more about yourself than winning
oh yeah, winning will
because
teach you
you
something too.
and yes, and failing in my opinion is good.
Yeah.
And I failed. I want my future children to fail
Hmm.
because it really tells you either one, if it's something, sometimes we get caught up in what people want us to be,
Yep.
whether it be your parents, your significant other, your friends. We get so caught up in what they want us to be that we're not living for ourselves anymore. So failing can show us, okay, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing, or maybe I just need to work harder because it's
Hmm.
something I really want to do. But it's okay to fail. It's okay to live for yourself and not become a doctor because your parents are doctors.
Hmm.
My grandfather was like a math whiz and I can't do math to save my life. So I didn't, as much as I wanted to be like him, I wasn't going to be an engineer, and I was
Yeah.
okay with that because when I failed, I was like, yeah, no. I need to figure out what's best for me and not try and live for other people.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself. Couldn't have said. Well, Winter, I thank you so much for coming on here and like sharing your thoughts and your wisdom with everybody. I'm very proud of you, and I'm happy that I know you. So I had to ask you to come on so that people can experience you too. So thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you for having me. I had fun. Hopefully people learn from this.
I'm sure they
And
will.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your time.
No problem at all. Well, you have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you. Bye.